Good evening and welcome to my podcast. I'm Bob Pace, I'm your host, and here we are to fight CPS and stop taking our children. CPS is notorious for trafficking our children, for stealing our children, for taking our children, for alienating our children. They really have not done right with families. And I speak that from firsthand experience and over the many of the hundreds of people I've talked to since October in all the 50 states. I want to warmly welcome you because you've been caught up in a nightmare and you don't see the light at the tunnel. Mm. Hopefully you're hearing me loud and clear. I got a new headset. I was able to skip a couple of meals and get the headset. So this should be better because wherever I'm at, I don't have to worry about it. It has a mic suppressing, so it will cut out the background noise of the microphone. So hopefully this is better. Anyway, I am happy to see you all here, and I'd like to go over how we can interact in this live podcast. This podcast comes from you via Facebook. You found me on Facebook and you follow me, and we're broadcasting on YouTube using the StreamYard application. And I'm here to try to tell you things that will help you. I have 4 rules to go over. I have a lot of topics I can talk about, and I'm open to kinds of questions. Now, right now, you see my phone number. That's my office number. It's 626 698 0990. And you can call in and reach me live. Now, some of you are calling me tonight earlier, so left text message to call me after 7 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. That's the time that I will answer the phone. It's either at 10 o'clock in the morning for 1 hour Pacific Standard Time, except on Sunday I'm not on at 10, I'm on at 8. And it's nighttime at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And I'll gladly take the call, put you on speakerphone, and you can talk to the audience, and they can listen to you. Now, another way that you can participate in this podcast is to text me messages. Now, we should be only dealing with CPS questions or issues. The child protection system is very, very, very corrupt, and I sorry you had to go through it. I went through it. It was terrible. I lost one child because of them and lost my home. So I'm not too happy with CPS. But when you text in a comment, please show your name, city, state, or country and be complete with your CPS case. Now, I do say country. Today we had a new country, Rwanda, in East Africa. I'm trying to learn about Rwanda, but we've had several African nations call. We've had Australia call, Canada call, United Kingdom, Ghana in South America, which maybe you don't know about, but it's north of Brazil, east of Venezuela. Small little country. They've called in Mexico, Mozambique on the east side of Africa, near the coast, above South Africa and below Somalia and across from Madagascar. We've had Denmark from Europe call in. We've had Liberia on the west coast of Africa call in many times, and they have a scout leader named Archie who was trying to protect his kids and so forth. They listen to how we handle CPS in the United States. And of course, today I had a new country, Rwanda. Rwanda is in East Africa, and I'm trying to study more about Rwanda. But they called in too. They called in too. So please text your comments, and I will try to help you. Now try to be complete with your CPS case, so I don't end up playing ping pong with you, like second guess you. If you have 3 children by 3 different fathers, tell me that. Tell me how uh, what you were charged with abuse or neglect. What were the charges there? Were the children taken from your home? What stage you're at with your CPS case? Is the father's involved or is the mother's involved? And so forth. I'll gladly help you. And that's all you have to do when you text in comments. Now, some of you are not ready to text in comments and don't want to talk, but you like to talk in the future. I have the show producer. Her name is Grace, and she's a very sweet person and works very hard at what she does. She will help you. All you do is email her with a morning or PM showtime Monday through Sunday. So you say Wednesday morning, Monday evening, Saturday morning, so forth, and then she'll put you on there. She'll give you the Steam Yard application link and tell you how to work as a guest. As a guest, you'll be with me and we'll walk you through it and we'll help you any way we can. People will text in and write comments and try to help you. So I'd love to have you as a guest. So those are my three ways: the phone call to my office phone, the text messages from you in, and I'll try to answer them, and then also the being a guest on my show. Now, I'm going to leave the phone number up for right now, and I'll go back to the show. We had some people this morning, and Faye came in, and she had some important documents to talk about, and she's from Richmond, Kentucky. And as I told you, we had Rwanda there. But so that you guys know what you're going through and what to expect with CPS, I've told you they're an awful agency, and it's true. All you have to do is look at 2022. Look up on the internet, 2022, the Pink Ladies of Prescott, Arizona. There are 8 social workers from Prescott, Arizona, in the CPS. They call their CPS DCS, Department of Children's Services. It has different names in different places. In California, it's called Child Protection Services. But I use CPS, the Child Protection System, because that is the same no matter what your acronyms are. It's a branch of social service that's supposed to protect your children from neglect or abuse. Neglect or abuse. I'm trying to get some of my callers to be on. Okay. Whoops. I somehow knocked myself right off. I don't understand this, is why it could disappear so bad. I was on and all of a sudden I'm off. Where did it go? There I am. Welcome, Melina Powers. Hi, and what city and state you're from or country? And Faye, I'm here. I can't hear you though. Oh, now I can. Huh. I have a brand new headset. I skipped a bunch of meals and saved up my pennies and got myself a headset that's supposed to be pretty good. Pullman, Washington. Okay, Faye's from Richmond, Kentucky, and Melina Powers is from Pullman, Washington. And what can I do for you, Malaya and Faye? What can I do for you? You can call in, text messages, or schedule a time with Grace. That's Grace at VincentWDavis.com. Grace at VincentWDavis.com. And you can certainly schedule a time in there. But I'm open to questions. I have lots I could talk about, but I prefer hearing from you all. Okay, I'm glad we're all connected here, Faye. I'm glad you can hear me. Um, okay. Um, you're going to try the call. All right. I'll leave the phone for you, Elena. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to put you on my speakerphone. Here it is. Good evening. Is this Milena Powers?
Yes, it is.
Welcome to my podcast.
Thank you.
And I put you live on the show so everybody can hear you. Um, let me read what Faye had to say. Did you know that in Kentucky there is no age restriction on uh, age of child being left alone? Yet CPS comes into my home um, heckling me because my 9.5-year-old son was outside by himself in our neighborhood. Also, a patient here in my state can be put they can put their child out and verbally emancipate them. Wow, Faye. You know, Faye comes up with all kinds of stuff. So, Milena, what can I do about your case? Can you tell me about your case?
Sure. My case has been going on for quite a long time. It started out with 4 kids in the state of Washington. That was removed. My one child was removed from me. I had a mass positive baby. That was 7 years ago. The state has they tried to remove or take my rights away. It took about a year, but I got my rights back reinstated. Um, and as of right now, they're just really in a stalemate. Unfortunately, my case started right around the time COVID hit, so that put a big damper on my case. I have, during the time that they had removed my rights, they moved two of my children out of the state. They now live in Michigan.
Why did they move the children out of state? Are they special needs children?
No, they claim that the foster parent, so her father was dying, and so in that that year time that, they had taken my rights because it took me a year to get into the appeals court. They decided they gave her permission to move, but it's hindered ever since I got my rights back. It's hindered the reunification process because obviously I can't see them as often as need be, my two daughters. The state did, so the courts granted me, the CPS had to be paying for me to go over once a month to Michigan to see my children, but that has yet to really happen on a monthly basis. They did it for a few months and then they stopped. And I have since had two children move in with me. I have a total of 7 children, but only 4 of them were, state, taken from the state.
Can we stop there for a moment? I'm a little confused.
Yeah.
How many biological children do you have?
I have 7 biological children.
Okay, and of all these 7 biological children, is it the same father or are they different fathers?
Different fathers. There's 3 different fathers.
3 different fathers, okay. And are those 3 different fathers involved with your children, or they just decide not to do anything?
So my ex-husband had custody of the children, but recently had kicked 2 of them out. That's who's living with me now.
Why did he kick them out?
Behavioral issues, but
and how old are these children that were kicked out? Were they teenagers?
Yeah, 15 is when.
Okay.
So he kicked my son out of 15. My son now is 20. He's been living with me for quite a while, and then my daughter, who's 15, just came to live with me recently. And actually, he can get in trouble in the state of Washington for kicking the kids out, but the state doesn't seem to be,
Well, has he given up his rights to the? Okay, one of them is older than 18. The other one's 15. Did he give up the rights to her?
Nope.
So he still wants to share in the upbringing of the 15-year-old?
He wants to have me deal with the behavioral problem and then send him back as, a well-behaved girl.
Oh, geez.
Which wouldn't happen.
Okay, if you're divorced from him, what did the custody arrangements that the judge decide in divorce court? What did he decide about the children?
So originally, as of right now, he is the main parent or whatever. I forget what that's called. But he's the
custodian. It's called the custodian parent. It's called the custodian parent.
Okay, he's a custodial parent. We have in our divorce papers, it states that me and him are able to change those rules as according to us that we feel fit, as long as the safety of the children are put at the forefront of that.
Is he cooperating with you, or is he giving you a hard time?
So he's threatening me a little bit. Just he wants me to take care of my daughter, but he doesn't want me to get any assistance or.
Was he paying child support?
Yeah, no, he's not paying child support right
now. That's wrong, and you could go to the judge about that and get child support. Child support is given to the parent who's taking care of the child, and it depends on how often the child's with each parent. It's a 50-50, then child support isn't that much. If it's a 90-10 where child doesn't even come home, or it's all, then he has to pay a lot in child support. And that's
Yeah.
something that your family court with divorce, that's the judge that can make that happen.
Yeah, I haven't really pushed the child support just because I haven't been able to pay the child support on my end up until he's had me put in jail and all this other stuff.
Why did
But
he have you put in
I
jail? That sounds horrible. Why would he put you in
so
jail?
it was I actually so I moved. He lives in Puyallup, and originally our case with those children were in Olympia. That's where we resided. Since I moved to Pullman, he had called and said that I had abandoned the children and that he had no idea where I was, which was false. And so I had a court date in Olympia. I was pregnant with my youngest and wasn't able to travel. And so I had these bounty hunters that came to my parents' house because he was claiming he didn't know where I was, which was not the case. He had my address. We talked. We were supposed to actually, the first summer that I was here, the kids were supposed to come over for break, and of course he just didn't follow through with that.
What was the bounty hunters coming for? What crime did you commit?
I'm not sure. My dad couldn't get it out of the bounty hunter dude. Eventually, this bounty hunter ended up calling me and asking me if I just jumped state or something. I was like, no, I'm still in Washington. And my ex had he knows where I'm at, whatever. And so he did some investigating. But there was a warrant in the interim of that. So then I did get put in jail for 3 days, and I was forgotten there. Over a $50 promise to pay. It's all been.
I know warrants are the worst thing to do. All you listeners out there, never ignore a warrant. If you promise to show up or promise to pay, you have to, or tell the court you need more time. But don't ignore a warrant because ends up you go to jail.
Right, and actually, I was forgotten in jail for 3 days. I had the money to pay. My counsel wasn't able to tell me how to pay the $50, and then when we went to court, I brought that up to the judge. So the judge asked how I would go about paying that, and nobody knew how I was supposed to pay it. So he was quite frustrated with that. He said that I should pay that and then be released. And like I said, I had $300 and some odd dollars on me when I was arrested because I was working. I had just started a job, but then of course lost the job due to being in jail. They didn't get me out right away. I was left in there for about 2 more days, and then I was released. And when I came up again on the judge's thing, he was like, "Why is she still in here?" And yelled at the prosecutor, but the damage had already been done. I had already been left in there and lost my job due to that. So.
Did they molest you in jail?
No, they didn't molest me in jail. They were just they just forgot about me. I was in there. I asked about when I could get out and stuff because, like I said, I had the money to get out. They were just trying to figure out how to pay the child support, which was ridiculous because how is anybody expect me to pay if they don't even know how I'm supposed to pay it? So it's just a runaround. This whole county really has been a shit show, to be honest. Excuse my language, but very much so. Just it's a good old boy town. It's a very small town. It's got a university here. If you've heard of the Cougars. Washington State Cougars, that's the university here. And, they're running wild over here. That's what they're doing. It's kind of crazy. I just started to really, put my story out there in the internet land because there isn't much help I'm getting over here. There's no, there's no one to really report to about the mishaps with the department. There's, my attorney is state appointed, so she's very timid at times and doesn't, call the state out when they're in contempt of things. And, it's been a long going thing. I'm pretty timid talk to people anymore. It just seems like there's, you get into this. It just seems very hopeless. It just seems very like there's not any help out there. So I appreciate your show, and I appreciate you letting me be on it, regardless of any help I get from
Yeah,
the show or
well,
not. Just
the problem is you're dealing with not only a corrupt CPS, and I was talking about in Prescott, Arizona, the ladies, they're called the Pink Ladies. There's 8 of them. And in 2022, they decided to be cute and made pink T-shirts with the word stenciled on the front, "Professional Child Kidnappers," and on the back they said, "Do you know where your children are at?" And they paraded this around in front of department stores, Walmart, and stuff. They were fired. 25 years went up in smoke because that's how much collectively the 8 of them have. And the whole department only had one social worker left, and that was a guy. They fired the director, they fired the workers, but that's the attitude that social workers have. And I hate to say that's the same attitude that policemen have. And with
oh
two
yeah,
bad
yeah,
agencies,
they're
it's
all
really, really hard. And they're in cahoots with each other. So it's very, very, very
definitely.
important. Now, I'm trying to understand. I know about your 15-year-old or 22-year-old, but you have 5 other children. What happened to them when the other 2 children returned? Where are the other 5 children?
So, like I said, I gave birth to a meth positive baby in about 2017, 2018. That's my youngest, who's going to be 7. She'll be 7 here shortly. And that's when the case started. They were removed when she was born. They removed my children from my home as well. Um,
And what was the allegations that removes your children?
I can't really tell you. I was taking meds. They were with the babysitter. From my understanding, the babysitter had a domestic dispute happen while I was in the hospital, and so she was at her home when she was left with my children at my home and told to stay in my home. But she had taken them to her place, which she was a hoarder, so her house conditions were horrible. Um, and they removed the children from her. That's who initially they came to because of domestic violence there at her home, and found my children there. The children were left with Crystal. I was, you know, they contacted me. I said, I'm in the hospital. I just had a baby. Um, and Crystal was supposed to be at my house, or my friend was supposed to be at my house. Sorry, I shouldn't say names. And
It's okay. It's okay. I know we're not supposed to say names. That's all right.
But yeah, so I was on some medication that makes you feel like you're drunk. It's called magnesium. I had a crash cart in my room. They thought I was going to stroke out. I had toxemia, super bad. I wasn't even able to walk down to see my baby in the NICU, or it's not NICU, it's just the nursery. Sorry, Pullman doesn't have a NICU. But so I was really out of it, which begs the question also is when because the social worker comes in during this time and starts berating me with questions. I of course tell her, I'm on meds. I can't remember certain things at this point because it makes you feel drunk, basically. Essentially, you just feel like you're drunk. But it was really hard to remember dates and times and things that I had written down at home, of course. And they of course removed the baby because of the meth use during my pregnancy, and that of course I was at fault at. Like, I can't deny that at all. But I had a plan. As soon as I had the baby, I was already scheduled to start treatment, and because I've been a recovering drug addict for quite like over 10 years, so I knew what the steps were to get better.
So
It's
what
just
you had, what the allegations that CPS had, is that you were neglected because you used drugs.
correct.
Did your children use any drugs?
No,
Did you ever do drugs in front of the children?
no.
Did you have anything that like prevent penalia? I forget the word of it. Anything to do with
Paraphernalia?
drugs? No, you had
No,
none of that
actually, I
around.
would.
And the
No,
children did
I would
not
not.
pick up some drugs by mistake, right?
No, sir. I didn't even use at home. I left. My boyfriend at the time would stay at home, and I would leave and go hang out with friends outside of the home, and then I would return in the morning. And there was never any paraphernalia nor drugs in the home.
Okay.
Yeah, and I have no criminal record. I have no. I'm not like a felon. There really isn't like what it just comes down to really is you know the state has just fumbled over things and done whatever they can to try and they've asked me to sign over my children. I'm not doing that. Like I'm capable of taking care of kids. Obviously, I mean the state of Washington gave me a child during this time. My son was released to me by a CPS worker over in Puyallup, um, and she said she had no problems with giving me my son. That's when he was 15. He so I mean, there's just so many things that are gone wrong. I've had workers, so they always give you like a veteran um, parent or like a social worker that works with the attorneys. Um, I've had her tell me specifically that she knows that there's illegal things going on and that she wishes she could do something about it, but she doesn't want to lose her job, but she needs her job. Um, you know,
Okay.
every time that I've tried to get help, there is no help over here. Somebody will hear me out or something, and then, there's no real conclusion to anything. That's been the biggest thing is like trying to figure out who I go and talk to report the things that have been going on. Most recently, they've moved my children, the two younger ones, into a foster home without the 90-day um, house study. And there was no, like, they should have had a meeting about this. They never did. That's one of their that's one of their rules for CPS. They've been totally just hindering my reunification. Like, they just keep stalling I had a meeting just 2 weeks ago, and they were stumbling because we were saying, well, what are the safety concerns? Like, why can't they come home right now? They tried throwing, so my son, he has a disability. He has an anger problem. And so now that's the safety concern. But obviously that wasn't the safety concern, you know, at the beginning. You know what I mean? Like they're just claiming, and they couldn't really come up with anything that per se said that I was a danger to the children or there was safety concerns. My daughter also just had talked to me about being touched by her foster father, which is one of the reasons why the move, I'm guessing, was imperative that the kids move out of the home that they were in. Um, but still, there was no, you know, I took her to the hospital and there was a whole thing, you know, documented. I made sure that the visitation supervisor documented, but nothing was really done other than them moving them to this other foster home, which there was no hearing about. There was nothing. They just up and moved my kids. Um, and it's kind of sucky because my children are suffering. They've been out of the home for 7 years, and so the two in Michigan are pretty much, they're 12 and 11 or 13 and 11 now, and so they're pretty set there. They have a whole life there that I'm not privy to because I don't live there, of course. They want me to sign them up for adoption, um, which we've had discussions about just because my girls have asked me. We're all sick of this department. We're all sick of having to have this microscope on our lives, and there not really be a reason to it. Since this whole case has started, I went from being a pretty sociable person to being, I don't really trust many people.
Well, you've been
And
through,
the trauma on
I
my
mean,
are pretty
to
bad.
listen to what you said, you've been through 7 relationships that have turned sour on you.
Oh yeah. Well, I have a background, so I also come from foster care myself. think that's really what heightened this whole thing and why my children were kind of sought after. I grew up in the foster care system. I was adopted when I was in sixth grade, and I actually had my oldest when I was 15. I got married at 16, and we had 3 children. And
Did you ever
I had them
graduate from
in
high
the health.
school?
I'm sorry.
Did
Yeah,
you,
I was married from high school. Yes.
no, did you graduate from high school?
Yes, sir. I graduated
Good.
early.
Did you have any life skills
Yeah.
growing up through high school?
So I had
Well,
some
like
knowledge.
was there any classes in high school about marriage, counseling, raising children, sex,
Oh yeah.
conception, and all that stuff? I
Well,
mean,
yeah. So I went to an alternative high school, which gave a lifestyle or a life skills class, and so there we learned about budgeting. We learned about being a parent. I have 14, or I have about 6 actual documents on parenting classes I've taken. I, the department itself here in Washington has yet to state that they're worried about my parenting. I'm really in tune with my children, more so than any of the foster parents. Even the foster parents that have been in their lives for 7 years, um, can, I know my kids. I luckily haven't, you know, it's been hard, but I'm their mom, so I have instincts that, have really, been good. I've definitely tried to do as many visits as I can. I went from before they took my rights, I was doing about 6 visits a week. On one day, I had 2 visits. I had a visit with the baby and then the older children. Um, but that all changed, of course, when COVID happened. And then when I got my rights back, I've had only 1 visit a week for the past, I don't know, it's been almost a year now with my rights being reinstated. And they're still, they just, once again, they've come to do they walk through the house or whatever. They promise that they're going to give me my in-home visit, which is what I was supposed to start this week. And it's, not happening, of course. And there'll be some sort of, that's the department. The department constantly is promising things and doesn't come through with it. It's just frustrating at this point, because even, I could do everything right and then nothing comes of it. And, I've gone through 6 social workers during this time, okay? So you could only imagine how much backslid that is. These new workers, they don't want to read the file. So, it's not like they constantly are trying to put me into these classes or that class. And it's just it's a hoopla over here. Like, I really wish that there was an agency in Washington State that kind of governed them, that would kind of show up and I could make a report to, and then maybe they could show up and just do an investigation. I've been told by many attorneys that I have a lawsuit on my hands, but of course I'm not worried about any of that until, I get my children back. That's ultimately what I want. And it's crazy how easily the state can just walk into someone's life and just, your rights to your children are just, demolished even before they were actually demolished. And the fact that I got an appeal and I was able to win that case, probably how rare that is.
yes, it is. I'm really surprised you got your rights after so long. I'm really surprised about that.
Yeah, well, so what's interesting about that is that CPS over here went to the appeals court and said, hey, we messed up. We did something incorrect. We would like to have the opportunity to fix it before we went to an actual trial to get them in trouble, because I had stated in my appeal that they've never been about reunification, which is interesting because in the state of Washington, their mission statement, their everything is about reunifying families. And I don't understand why they've put so many barriers to my reunification with my kids, especially being that I've gone through the, parents evaluations. I've had mental health evaluation. I've had, I've done all these things. You know, um, and it's just a constant. They throw one thing out there, and it's just crazy. I mean, we're on our second or third judge for the case. Just started this last
Now, are you getting legal
court
help? Are
hearing.
you getting counsel?
So I just have a state appointed counsel, and
So you
it's
use
been
the
really hard
public
because,
defender.
yeah, and you know how they are. I mean,
Well,
they
yeah, they're a
have a
waste
high
of
workload.
time. They're a waste of time because they're
Yeah,
carrying a caseload of 30 people and they only talk on the day of the hearing.
yeah, exactly. And then they don't also they're so timid from going up against the state. I mean, in this 7 years, the state has lost my children. Like literally, the foster parent left the state with my children without permission. I was told at a visit that my girls went on an airplane. When I talked to the social worker, she was like, "Oh, I had no idea. How are you losing my children? Like, we want to talk about safety concerns. That's a major one. Or how about my daughter, left school with another child, so kidnapped another child, was missing for over 2 hours. They had no idea where she was. I've been called because my kids have gone into like respite care to give the foster parents a break. They lost them in respite care, didn't know where they were. Um, so I had these, visitation supervisors calling me saying, "Where are your kids?" Like, what do you mean, where are my kids? They're, in state care, but then they couldn't come up with my kids. And, you know, it's been traumatic to say the least. I definitely see how well they are oiled in the sense of just like trying to just get me to sign my rights away. And I mean, they try and slip that in every chance they get. But it's been really difficult. And it's just been hard because it's trauma for me as well. And trauma on the brain can cause a lot of, I don't remember things very easily. I have PTSD. I have, um, I have a lot of things that have since come from this case. Um, the cops over here also very much so in cahoots with, CPS, and I was beat up by officers, and and everyone nobody tells me their first word to me is like, there's no way that that's happening, and it's like kind of hurtful, because that's the life I live. I live in a small town where the cops aren't helpful. They, you know, I've, tried to stay on the right side of all this. I've tried, doing as they say, and just nothing changes. Like, and the sad part is my kids, my son, started school. So he was 2, my youngest son, when he was taken out of my care, put into school. Well, he's behind in school, and I'm just finding this out this year. He's now in 4th grade, and they're just now starting to tell me, like, oh, he's behind in school. He has behavioral problems at school. They keep trying to blame that on me, but I mean, there's no correlation here. Like, of course he's gonna have issues. That's when you go to get foster kids and you're a foster parent. Kids are gonna have some behavioral changes and behavioral problems usually. It's very common, but I've been preaching about trying to get them, counseling going for them, and they don't figure that out. From my parenting assessment, it was requested that I have um, family counseling with them. That still has yet to happen.
Right.
And the state didn't get counseling for my older girls either before they left the state. And then, of course, when I got my rights back, then it became really hard to get family counseling with kids that are outside of my state.
Yeah, let me catch up with one of our other guests who's
Of
did some
course.
comments. Faye from Richmond is saying she's had some technical difficulties, but she says in my state, foster parents are not allowed to move states with kids because that causes a barrier to reunification, and therefore it's not allowed in her state. So in your state, they allow that because that hurts reunification with your children. That's sad. That's
Well,
really bad.
I would say, I would also say, Faye, you got to remember that these officials here in this, the officials I'm talking about, this particular judge that allowed them to move out of state, he also react, so took back what his ruling was for him taking my rights away, because he spent 45 minutes yelling at me, telling me how I didn't love my children. I went to go and get copies of that because there should be copies of the court hearing and the notes. And he reindacted, I guess it's called, or took it to where you can't get a copy of that anymore. So the only people that know of what went on during that court hearing are the people that were there. And I can promise you that every single person in that courtroom was crying except for the man yelling at me. And nobody came to my rescue. It's a common thing with this judge. And he's older, so he's retiring very soon. But we got him removed as soon as we got our rights back. We said we didn't want him as a judge because it was conflict of interest. He was the one that took our rights. There was no way, you know, in our minds that he was going to be any different of a judge.
And were you able to switch the judge out?
Yeah, so in the state of Washington, you have a one-time, so each parent can switch the judge once. And so the children's father invoked his right to change the judge. We had that judge for a very short time, and then was told that he was retiring. And so court also gets put on hold quite often because, you know, now that the judge here in this county can't provide over it, we have to get one from Spokane. And a lot of times there's conflicts of time and all this other stuff. The case just needs to, like, need, they need to either shit or, they just need to either, try and take my rights again or, give them back. But something needs to be done because we're kind of at a stalemate at this point.
Wow.
They're not being there's no safety concerns other than I'm a recovering addict, which I keep telling the department, you're always going to have a fear of their being used. The thing that they need to know about that is that I've been through a bunch of different, treatments. I know the right steps to going and taking, care of myself. And nobody wants to hand somebody a kid without them, knowing for sure that everything's going to be good. But with recovery, as hopefully everyone knows, recovery is a lifetime thing that I have to live with and have to practice.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
a lot of moving parts. So there's never going to be a guarantee. And so my biggest thing is like, you've done everything but hand my children back and probably as I know, that they'll be in my life for 6 months. Once the kids come home, it's still 6 months before they're out of your life. And, it'll be scrutinized and watched and all that. So it's like, at this point, for the betterment of my children, you would think that they would give me my children, especially with this molestation thing going on and everything. You would think that they wouldn't want any.
Well, have you thought about hiring? I should go over my rule number one, and that is you need a true attorney. And let me speak here for a moment. Rule number one is you need to get an attorney, and I say that because CPS is awful. You are like Alice in Wonderland. You fell in the rabbit hole, and you're going from room to room and door to door, going nowhere. And that's what CPS is. You're lost in that world, and you need someone that can professionally navigate and show you the round there. And so I tell everybody, you need to get an attorney. It's like if you're doing open heart surgery, you're not going to open your heart yourself. You're not going to let a plumber tear your chest apart or you let an auto mechanic. You're going to get a professional doctor. So you need a professional family dependency attorney. And we have one. His name is Vincent Davis, Vincent W. Davis. His law firm, Vincent W. Davis and Associates, produces this podcast, and I want to thank him for that. But he will talk for 30 minutes for $60 as a consultation. and he can be reached at 888-888-6582. And tell him that Bob Pace sent you. And when you talk to him, tell him about Bob Pace sent you. So you can get on his calendar. There is also a link to his calendar. I need to put it out there. I forgot to put it out there. Um, what you do, where did it go? There it is. What you want to do is you want to go to the website called Candly, CALENDLY. Um, you type that part in .com/law office of VWD /Bob Pace. That takes you right to his calendar, and you can schedule your time with him and see what's available. But I tell all the listeners out there, you need an attorney, someone that can fight. He's been fighting for 35 years. He is a trial attorney. He goes to any state, Northern California, Southern California. It is a little expensive because you have to pay for his airfare, his car rental, and his accommodation. But his fees for the basic work is all but the same no matter where he's at. It all depends on the complexity of your case and how long your case has been going on. But at least talk to him for a consultation, and he'll help navigate and help show you the ways with CPS because they're an awful agency. I talk about the pink ladies and their attitude as professional kidnappers. There's also another social worker just recently on her Facebook page put an ad up, an ad from 1848 before the Civil War. It said black children for sale. And that is the mentality. Why would a current social worker in 2024 place an ad on her Facebook, black children for sale? Now, what is that message showing you? It's showing they are corrupt, that social workers are professional kidnappers, and they do it. And they do it solely for the money because it's $80 billion that they have taken uh, from the state. They get the money from the federal government that gives it to the state, and the state passes it down. But $80 billion is a lot of money. So I'm telling you what rule number one that you need to get an attorney, and otherwise it's going to be dragged along because they're getting in my state in Orange County they're getting $20,000 per child per month. That's 60,000 because I had 3 children there. Multiplied times 100 families. How much is that a month? Almost $1 million a month. That's ridiculous. It doesn't cost that much to take care of children. So they are corrupt out there. They are corrupt out there. There's no question about that. And
Yeah,
Faye,
we just had a
yeah. Oh,
broker who actually was going around promising young women or women their children back if you would sleep with them.
yeah,
He was
that's sad because women are abused a lot. Men
yeah,
men have the wrong head. They're not using the right head, but they don't care. If a woman's pregnant, they're gonna they say, "Fine, you take care of it." They don't care. Men out there should be responsible fathers and take care of their children. It takes two to create children, and it's wrong. And yes, there are bad policemen and bad social workers that will use sex. It's terrible. Faye can tell you that too. She was in and out of foster care 5 times. She was molested numerous times, and because she was in foster care, she too had her kids attacked, just like yours were attacked. So it's pretty sad that we got a bad uh, foster care system. We got a bad CPS system. The social workers are bad. There's no question about that.
right. The
Faye
problem
said,
too is that has
let
no
me get to
income.
see what
So
Faye said. She said, in my state,
yep,
foster parents are not allowed to move. Oh, we already read that part. Okay, she further said, if they have anything against you to terminate your right, they would not be asking you to be relinquish them. So that's a good point. If they're asking you to relinquish them, they don't have anything against you. So you don't answer, you don't sign paperwork, you don't say anything there. She also says, do not believe them when they say to sign them over and you'll be able to see them um see
for an open
them,
adoption, yeah,
yeah, occasionally, you know, uh places or phone calls after they adopt lies. It's up to the adopted parents. And 99% of the parents of the time they don't keep that agreement. So I'm telling you, you can't trust them. You really can't. But you've had some more success than a lot of parents, so I'm pretty impressed. I'm pretty impressed.
Well, thank you. I think that the state has definitely they thought that they were getting a low income type woman who wasn't educated, who would have a criminal record, who would look a certain way and be a certain way. And the fact of the matter is that I will die before my children are, you know, before I lose my rights. I'm going to do everything in my power, as a mother should, I believe, if you are able to try and fight. But I can tell you, I'm getting to the point where I'm tired, and that's the biggest thing. Is I'm exhausted. Things are being said and done, and like if I don't write things down, or if I don't, I'm constantly just on my toes. And it's sad to watch my children who went from being, my son had never said no to me ever. My 2-year-old, he said no to me during a visit, and that was pretty heart crushing. He, my kids, their personalities have changed. They are different children, and that's the sad part. I can take all the grief and all that stuff. I'm an adult. I can handle that, but my children, that's
Yeah.
a whole nother
I'm going to have
thing
to
to walk through.
I'm going to have to end the podcast because we're reaching 8 o'clock and I can't go because there's another show and I don't want to jeopardize that show. So I do want to thank
I know.
you for taking the time. I hope you call me back and give me more updates. Also, if you have more questions or you need answers to, I gladly help you. Um,
Thank you so much.
Melena
And thank you so
Powers.
much.
And again, thank you for calling in. Faye, thank you for all your comments. I appreciate you here for all my shows, Faye. She's from Kentucky. So I had a Kentucky and Washington um, mothers here, and that's great. And I want everybody who's listening, keep fighting for your children. God bless you. And I'll see you tomorrow at 10 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. And God bless you.